Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Well, today we're going all the way back to 1967. We're cracking open a vintage issue of Bird Banding magazine.
Bird banding.
Yeah, it's filled with all these short notes from, well, ornithologists, scientists who study birds.
Right.
And they're sharing these, unexpected things they observed out in the field.
It's like those nature documentaries, but like bite-sized and super surprising.
Exactly. It's like, wait, did that really just happen?
Yeah.
So our first stop, it takes us to Baltimore, 1966.
Okay.
Seemingly normal day, until someone spots a gray squirrel. But I'm not talking about burying nuts for winter.
Right, right. Squirrels, they're omnivores, but they usually stick to plants, seeds, nuts, maybe the occasional bug.
Yeah, yeah.
But this observation, this is a different picture of what these fluffy-tailed creatures can do.
But get this. This squirrel was observed actively eating a still living cardinal.
Whoa.
And not just, pecking at it, holding it like a person would a hamburger, taking big bites.
Wow. And the report, they really emphasize how casually the squirrel was doing it.
Yeah.
Just, sitting upright, totally unbothered.
So what's the deal here? Was it, a food shortage in Baltimore that year?
Me?
Was this a desperate squirrel? Or was it something more, sinister? Some kind of aggression we don't usually see in squirrels.
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, sometimes squirrels eat small animals, but birds aren't usually on the menu.
Right.
So have we underestimated their predatory instincts? Or was this just a really weird one-off thing?
Yeah.
It makes you think, There's still so much we just don't know about animal behavior, even with creatures we think we know.
It definitely changes how you see those squirrels running around the park.
Yeah.
Are they, secretly judging our picnic baskets?
Maybe. But really, these observations, they help us break out of those simple categories we put animals in.
Yeah.
It reminds us that nature is full of surprises. Even those seemingly harmless creatures can have a wild side.
Okay, so we've had our squirrel shock. Let's move on to something, well, maybe a little less dramatic at first.
Okay.
But just as strange. Bird molting.
Right, molting. That's when birds shed and replace their feathers.
Right.
It's pretty essential. It keeps their feathers in top condition. For flight, insulation,
Sure.
But the interesting thing is, it usually follows a pretty predictable pattern, almost like a schedule.
But sometimes nature likes to throw a wrench in the works.
Yeah.
And that takes us to our next observation. Monomoy Island, Massachusetts, 1966.
Okay.
Researchers were banding Tennessee Warblers, a migratory songbird.
Right.
And they came across two birds with really unusual molting patterns.
Exactly. These warblers, a male and a female, were in the middle of their post-breeding molt. After nesting season, when they shed those old, worn feathers and grow fresh ones.
Yep.
But the way their feathers were being replaced, it was totally off.
So it's like they started renovating their feather wardrobe, but then just gave up halfway through?
It's a good way to put it. The male warbler, probably a young bird, had only molted the first few flight feathers on each wing and those coverts that protect them.
Okay.
But the rest of his feathers were still all worn and raggedy.
And the female.
Even weirder. She hadn't molted any of those important flight or tail feathers at all, but she had replaced a few random patches of body feathers, like a few on her back, a dozen on her belly, a couple under her tail. Talk about a patchy job.
Right. It's like she went for the accent highlights instead of the full feather makeover.
Exactly. Now, the big question is, what could have caused these bizarre molting patterns? Well, there are a few possibilities. It's probably like a combination of things. One theory is these birds, they might have experienced some kind of environmental stress.
Okay.
Maybe during migration or breeding season.
Okay.
Something that disrupted their molting cycle.
So their internal feather clocks got messed up from a rough journey.
Yeah, something like that.
Makes sense. What else could cause, such wonky molting?
Disease, maybe? Or parasites.
Oh, right.
Certain mites, for example, they can infest feathers.
Yeah.
Mess up the whole molting process.
Right.
Or it could be something internal, like a hormonal imbalance.
Okay, so external stress, pesky parasites, or maybe some internal biological hiccup.
Right.
But these weren't just any birds,
Yeah.
right? These were Tennessee Warblers,
Right.
and they're migratory.
Got it. And that's important.
Yeah.
Migratory birds, they've evolved to molt really efficiently.
They have to, right, for those long trips.
Exactly. So the fact that these warblers had such incomplete molts, well, it raises even more questions.
Yeah.
Could this be a sign of a bigger problem? affecting the whole species. Or maybe something specific to the environment they were migrating through.
It makes you wonder if those researchers on Monomoy Island were onto something bigger
Yeah.
than just a couple of oddly molted birds.
Right.
Maybe those warblers were trying to tell us something about, like, the health of their ecosystem.
That's a really interesting thought. It highlights why these small observations, even the strange ones, are so valuable.
Yeah.
They can give us clues about things that might be happening on a much larger scale.
It's like, even in the animal world, appearances can be deceiving.
Definitely.
We see a squirrel munching on a nut, a bird maybe missing a few feathers. We think, oh, that's normal.
Right.
But there could be a whole story underneath that we're just missing.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to pay attention to those details, even the strange ones, the insignificant ones.
Right.
Because those details can lead to some pretty big discoveries. Think about it.
Yeah.
If that person in Baltimore, if they hadn't noticed that squirrel and actually reported it, we'd never know that squirrels have a taste for cardinals.
At least sometimes.
Exactly. And who knows how many other fascinating animal behaviors are happening right under our noses that we're just not seeing. I mean, if a squirrel can take down a cardinal,
What else is out there?
what else are we totally clueless about? It makes you want to go out and start observing everything, doesn't it?
It really does, just to see what you might find.
You know, you don't even have to be a scientist to contribute to our understanding of nature.
Oh, really?
Citizen science projects, they're getting more and more popular.
Yeah, I've heard of those.
And they rely on everyday people, making observations, reporting what they find.
So anyone can be a nature detective.
Uh,
That's cool. I bet our listener out there, they're already thinking about what strange animal behavior they might have seen.
I hope so. Because the more eyes we have out there, the more we can learn about all these amazing creatures.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe our listener will be the one to uncover the next big animal behavior mystery.
Speaking of mysteries, you mentioned earlier that you've seen some pretty interesting animal interactions yourself. Anything that stands out?
Well, I wouldn't call it a mystery exactly, but I did once see a group of crows.
Okay.
They seemed to be playing a game of tag with a red fox.
Crows playing tag with a fox. Wait, are we talking about the same crows that are, like, super smart?
The very same.
The ones that use tools and everything?
That's what made it so fascinating. It really seemed like they were playing with the fox.
Really?
Swooping down, cawing, almost teasing it,
Wow.
and then darting away when the fox tried to chase them.
That's wild. Like they were messing with it on purpose.
It makes you wonder how much we still have to learn about the social lives of animals.
Yeah. Even the ones we see every day.
Absolutely. And it just shows we shouldn't underestimate animal intelligence or their complexity.
Right.
There's so much more going on than we realize.
So we've talked about a squirrel with a taste for birds, warblers with wacky molts, and crows playing tag with a fox. The more we look at the animal world, the more we realize we don't know.
That's the best part, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's always something new to discover, something to challenge our assumptions.
And that brings us back to our listener. We've given them a lot to think about today. After all that, I mean, these unusual animal behaviors, does it make you look at, like, the squirrels and birds in your neighborhood differently?
Yeah, do you ever wonder, like, what are they up to when we're not looking?
Right. What are those hidden sides to their personality that we just, don't usually see?
Maybe you're even thinking about becoming a nature detective yourself now.
Yeah. Keeping your eyes peeled for those, like, weird moments, the ones that make you question everything you thought you knew?
Exactly, because every observation, even the small ones, the strange ones, they all matter.
They do.
They add to our understanding of, all this amazing life on Earth.
So keep your eyes open, stay curious, never stop asking questions.
Because that squirrel in the park, it might not be just a squirrel anymore.
Right.
It could be a reminder that nature is full of surprises.
Just waiting to be discovered. And on that note, I think we're wrapping up this deep dive into the wild world of animal behavior.
I hope you enjoyed it. All the unexpected, the unexplained.
Until next time, happy exploring.